Hi guys, welcome to Intentional Homeschooling. I'm Chantel, and today we're going to be talking about the books that we've been reading in our homeschool and that my kids have been reading for the last couple of months. Now, if you like book recommendations or ideas, please sign up for my homeschool newsletter. I send it out pretty much every single week, and I always give you a look inside what my 9-year-old is reading, what my 12-year-old is reading, and what I am reading. So they're not necessarily recommendations because we may not be very far into them at the point of the newsletter, but it gives you more books each week to check out and see if they would work for you and your family. Before we get on to the books that we've been reading in the last couple of months, I want to do a book from the vault. I've been trying to do this most videos / podcast episodes. It's just a book that I think is really good, that hasn't got enough time in the spotlight recently, and I really do need to start making a list of all the books that I've shared here because I don't want to repeat some too often. But here's one I feel like I haven't talked about in a while, and this is Sweep, the story of a girl and her monster, and this is set in the, I don't know, Victorian era maybe? We have a chimney sweep is our main character, and it has some fantasy elements because she has this monster, this friend from coal, and it is fantasy, but it is also historical fiction because you learn a lot about chimney sweeps. And this book, I read it through myself and then we listened to it together as a family, and both times I teared up. It was really good, very well done, and this is coming from someone who's not a huge Jonathan Auxier fan. My daughter loves Peter Nimble, but that one was just way too weird for me. And I read The Night Gardener, also not my favorite, but Sweep, this one I really loved. So my library has a really cool feature where every time I check out books, they tell me the total value of the books that we checked out like that particular time, but also the total value for the year. And the last time I shared a reading wrap-up, I shared our total, and now it's been a couple of months. So the last time I went to the library, I just happened to check out 17 books that time, which was $409.28 that time. And so far this year, we have checked out $5,787.26 worth in books. And this does not count audiobooks. I listen to some and ebooks, and my kids have ebooks and audiobooks that they have through their own separate accounts. These are just physical books that we are checking out. So I'm very thankful for our library. We also own a lot of books as well, but we use our library a lot. And I just think that's a fun feature to share here every time that I'm sharing a bit of a reading wrap up. So a little while ago, I shared all about using literature as a spine in your homeschool, and I have now since gone and created an entire workshop on that topic, and you can purchase it in my shop, or it is part of my homeschool membership, which, let me just warn you now, the membership is going up in price in a couple of weeks, and if you want to get it at the extremely low rate of $30 for an entire year, when there are like multiple $100s worth of products in there, sign up now because you don't have a whole lot of time. But we have been studying World War II in our homeschool lately. So a lot of the books that we've been reading have had to do with that topic. Not all of them. It's a bit of a heavy time period, so I didn't want to like overwhelm them. But you'll notice definitely some themes here where there's a little bit extra World War II stuff, and that would be why. Let's start with our read alouds, and for our home that means audiobooks, because try as I might, I can read a picture book aloud, but I just cannot read chapter books out loud well, unless it's a free verse chapter book. But other than that, I'm not very good at it. So we usually listen to audiobooks for about half an hour in the morning, just while the kids are doing some like hands-on stuff, and then often at meal times as well. And I'm going to leave all the books that I talk about linked in the show notes. So if you go down to the description of the video or the show notes of the podcast, it will send you a link, or they will have a link to my website, which will have all these books listed. If you're on YouTube, you get to see the covers of the books. If you're listening to the podcast, you can click over and you can see them via the post that I have. Okay, so our current audiobook actually we just finished this morning, and it was Allies by Alan Gratz. And this was my first time reading a book by him. His book, I think Refugee, is often recommended. I feel like that is one that people have read, like out of all of his books. I didn't realize he had written so many other ones because I only ever hear about that one. And so this was our first experience with him, and it was very well done. It was all centered around D-Day, and we had a lot of different points of view, so that was a bit confusing, but we got to see D-Day from all these different angles, from the Brits, from the French, from the Canadians, and from the Americans, which was really neat. His writing style, it was not my daughter's favorite. I do feel like maybe his writing would appeal more to boys. My son didn't really weigh in a ton there, and his book did have a bit of language, but all our characters were like either young soldiers or people helping with the French resistance. They were all young characters, but they were all in the middle of war. So my theory when it comes to swearing in books is, if it's not too much and if it seems appropriate to the situation, I don't mind it. But if an author is just throwing in swear words for no reason, I don't, that bothers me. This wasn't a ton, and it did feel like it fit the situation. I still would have liked it even better if he didn't have any, but it didn't really bother me. I don't want to like completely shield my kids from everything because they're gonna get this in real life. At the same time, I don't want to like expose them to it just to expose them to it, but I think it was well done. If you're giving this book to your kids to read by themselves, I would probably say like grade 8 and up, but we stopped many times and had lots of different conversations. The whole point of the using literature as a spine workshop that I made was to give you a couple books ideas and how you can use that book as a spine, and then you can take those basic ideas and use it for every single book. And so having lots of conversations about what you're reading is definitely a big part of it. And then prior to that, we've been in a bit of a dry spell, I feel like, with books. This one, Allies, was pretty good. But before that, we quit a book, which we don't normally do. We were trying to read from the, I think it's the Trailblazers series, and it just does not interest my kids as much. We started the Corrie Ten Boom one and we didn't finish it. I can't remember the title of it, but I'll have that one linked. And then we also, yeah, so we started the Corrie Ten Boom one and it was so dry. But they do have different authors. We did listen to William Tyndale, and it wasn't my favorite writing, but it was pretty good. It was the first time we'd really read anything about William Tyndale, so it was interesting to get to know that. Before that, we quit John Wesley. This is from the Christian Heroes Then and Now series, and I don't know what is going on, but Hoopla has had the Christian Hero series for years, and we have loved it. But all of a sudden at the end of February, beginning of March, all the normal ones went away and there was just like some random ones, and I'm just checking it right now and now they're all back on again. So I don't know what happened there for a bit, but there was only 6 Christian Heroes ones to choose from, and we started John Wesley and I couldn't get through it. I had never researched John Wesley before, and he was not an example. Like, I personally, hearing the story that I was hearing, would not put him down as a Christian hero. Yeah, so I think we got about halfway and then looked up kind of where his life led and just felt like that wasn't really a book for us to be reading. So we ended up quitting that one. But I do see that Christian Heroes has their like regular selection plus possibly some more than they used to have back on the app. So I don't know what happened there, but that was the first Christian Heroes one that we ever quit. I've enjoyed all the other ones that we've ever listened to before. So that is what we've done for audiobooks / read alouds. And then there's some picture books and graphic novels and stuff here that I'm going to share. The first one is What Was D-Day? So because we were listening to Allies, I thought I would get some resources about that, and this is the What Was, Who Was series. So it's got a lot of words, but also quite a bit of picture illustrations to go with it. So my kids just kind of Well, my daughter read it and my son like flipped through it and read little bits here and there. So that's pretty good. I do enjoy this series. We own a bunch of them and then get other ones out from the library all the time. And then another series that was read through a lot this month was the I Survived graphic novels. So we got these all from the library and I got like one or two and then my son instantly wanted all the other ones. So I don't know if this is all the ones they have in graphic novel form or if we didn't quite get them all, but we did I Survived the Attack of the Grizzlies, I Survived the Sinking of the Titanic. This is a good one because the Titanic anniversary is coming up right away. I do plan on having a blog post up maybe by the time this is live, if not then shortly after, with some different resources that we're going to be using while learning about the Titanic right away. I Survived the Nazi Invasion in 1944. I Survived Hurricane Katrina 2005. I Survived the Attacks of September 11th, 2001. And I Survived the Shark Attacks of 1916. My kids really enjoyed these. There's different illustrators for them, so my daughter definitely preferred some illustration styles over others, but overall I think they're pretty well done. And I do have a list on my blog that gives you lots of ideas for historical books that you can read and research based on time period. I have it kind of laid out on time period. I will leave that linked below as well. And then in my membership, I have gone into more detail with some of the books. Some like disclaimers I think that people might want to know going into it. Just a little bit of extra information, but I do have the basic list on my blog. Okay, and then a couple more here. This one is Escaping the Titanic, a young girl's true story of survival. Once again, I got more Titanic books out, and my daughter had actually just read about this. Is Ruth Becker. She was 12 on the Titanic, so this is a true story, or a picture book based on a true story, so there was that one. She really enjoyed that. And then there's this series that I think my library maybe only had 2 books in. Jane Austen, Great Lives in Graphics, and Anne Frank, Great Lives in Graphics. So my daughter really likes these non-fiction, like infographic type style books. And I love that we can get these from the library. She spent a lot of time looking at both of these books. So the Jane Austen one she really enjoyed, and then as well the Anne Frank one. And I like when people are creative enough to show information in such exciting ways. Like, it's much more interesting to look at a book like this than sometimes just a novel or like a non-fiction book that's just words. I really admire what they've done with these books. And then kind of in a similar vein, I was book shopping with a friend and my stack of books is falling over. I came across this book at the bookstore and I was like, well, I'm not going to buy it, but I went home and requested it from the library. This is The Brontes. This is the fantastically feminist and totally true story of the astonishing authors. So I think this is a series, but I don't know if my library had any other books in this series. So it's just kind of a non-fiction, cutely illustrated information about the Brontes. So my daughter really liked this as well. And I'm going to keep checking to see if they have more books in this series. One last like picture book, information book, and then we'll get on to the novels that my kids enjoyed this month or the last 2 months. This one is Atlas of Cats, and my daughter is a big cat lover, so I thought this would be fun. And it's a very cute illustrated like encyclopedia kind of cats. They're broken down by type, and they've got cute illustrations, very interesting information throughout, and then they're each ranked by intelligence, stubbornness, personality, wanderlust, and cuddliness, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, they don't have an entire page for a ragdoll cat, which is what we have, but they are a subcategory on the Berman page. I actually don't even know what kind that is, but this is a cute book. If you are interested in cats at all, I would recommend checking this one out. Okay, on to the books that my kids read. Not I'm not going to talk about all the ones they read, just the ones that they enjoyed the most. And back in, I think it was February, we were doing the winter reading challenge. It was January to February. And I told my kids if they got a certain amount, I was going to buy them each a new book. And my son got Agents of Soot. So this is by the author of Investigators, John Patrick Green. And this is a graphic novel that I honestly haven't even read, but he loves Investigators and Dogman. And if you have kids that enjoy that, especially boys, because it just seems to be mostly a boy thing. That being said, my daughter usually steals these from him and reads them anyway. Then I would recommend checking this out. This is like a new spin-off series that they're writing, and it has gotten him into reading and like enjoying reading, and I just love that. You really can't put a price on that. And then he also finished Imagination Station, Refugees on the Run, so I wanted them to each read some stuff about World War II while we were studying it, and so I got him this book out. And this is Beth and Patrick. I think they're like the main characters throughout the Imagination Station series. I've read a couple of the books, but they are in Lithuania and helping some Jews escape. And my son was telling me a little bit about what happens in the book and how the family are Jews and they're trying to register to get passports to leave the country, and people are like throwing rocks at them, and how heartbreaking that was. So he enjoyed this, and I'm definitely going to get him some more Imagination Station books in the near future for him to be reading as well. These are they are chapter books, but the font is quite large. So if you have a child that struggles a little bit more with reading, or like wants to feel like they're going a little faster, plus there is some illustrations, I would recommend this series for sure. And then for my daughter, couple that she really enjoyed lately is All Fall Down. This is an Embassy Row novel, and this one I actually just read at the beginning of April here, so like a couple days ago. This is I would probably put it down as like a young YA book. It's about a girl named Grace who saw her mother murdered a couple years ago, and after that this book was so much heavier than I was expecting. After that, she spent a lot of time in the psych ward and therapy and all sorts of things. Like, I was not expecting something so heavy when my daughter told me to read this. And she goes to live with her grandfather, who is an ambassador and lives in an embassy in this like fictitious European city or country, I guess it is. And she thinks she sees the guy who killed her mother, and that's kind of what the book is about. Not for the sensitive reader, it's heavy, but it's really well done. And my daughter, well, she is a highly sensitive person, that doesn't bother her in reading or in movies, oddly enough. So she really enjoyed this, and then went on to read the rest of the series, and she gave them all 5 stars. So I gotta finish that yet. Then she did read Ground Zero by Alan Gratz. She did read another one of his books too. I think that other one was World War II, but she didn't enjoy it as much as this one. So this one is, we're following a boy on September 11th, 2001, when the Trade Center goes down. And then we're following a girl, September 11th, 2019, in Afghanistan. And she gave this book 4 stars. She did enjoy it. I just think that his writing style is not her favorite. So she told me the general idea of it, and it sounds interesting. But because I didn't read it myself, I don't know what I can say and what I can't, but she would recommend this. Well, Alan Gratz, actually, if you look on his website, he usually does have ages for each book. Some of them are a little bit geared towards 8 to 12, and then some of them are a little bit older, like 13 to 17, so more that YA age. But there's no easy way to distinguish from the book itself which one it is. So I would definitely look his books up. Don't put them in the hands of sensitive readers, I don't think, because they are covering heavy topics, and he doesn't really shy away from the heaviness, I think, but still really well done. And then the last one that she enjoyed, she gave 5 stars to, was Iceberg by Jennifer A. Nielsen. This is another Titanic book, and in this one we follow a girl named Hazel who sneaks aboard the Titanic, and she's obviously going to New York She wants to be a journalist, so she's looking for a story on the ship. And the story that she ends up writing is very different than what she originally thought. So Jennifer A. Nielsen always does a really good job with her middle grade historical fiction, so I always recommend her books. So there you have it. That is kind of the good books that we've read recently, and we are currently looking for our next read aloud. I did ask those in my membership forum to give us suggestions. I'm not sure if we're going to be reading one of those by the time you watch this, but I'm always looking for great read aloud suggestions. My kids are 9 and 12, so I would love to hear your suggestions, and let us know something that you have been reading lately.